Hi, in our last video we created our state and we created our thread local so that we can work with our state. And in this video we are going to create our first function. We are going to start with the query functions since they will be pretty straightforward. We are going to say ICCDK, and from ICCDK we are going to use query. And the first function we will have is getProposal. With this function, we are going to get a certain proposal. I will say key use 64 here, and we are going to return an option. And inside this option, we will have our proposal. So if you remember from the last chapter, we are going to use .with function. Since we want to work with proposal map, we are going to say proposal map.with, and inside this, we will have our p. Now we got used to it, and we are going to say I want to borrow this p. It doesn't have to be mutable because we are just retrieving data, not changing anything in the state. And then we are going to say I want to get the one with the key. So here we have the key as the parameter, and we are getting the value from our stable BTreeMap based on this key. Alright, that will be our first query function, and our next query function will be something similar. Again, we are going to say ICCDK, and we are going to use query, and we are going to say getProposal_count this time, so that we would know how many proposals we have. We will return use 64 in this case. I'm going to say again proposal.with because we want to work with the proposal, and we said that using that with function with this proposal map, actually we are creating an encapsulated safe environment that we can work with. And inside this we are going to have a closure. I generally use p, but you can use whatever letter you want. And again I will say p.borrow. And in this case, instead of get, I'm going to use .length function because I want to return the length. I'm not retrieving any data. And this will be our second query function. Now that we have our query functions, let's create our first update function. And as you would guess it, I'm going to use ICCDK and update. Our first update function will be createProposal. With this function, we are going to create a proposal. So creating a proposal in our case is basically creating the struct using the given parameters, and we are going to fill the rest of the struct based on how we want to initialize our proposal, and then we are going to insert this struct to our stable tree map. And as a parameter, we are going to have our key, which is going to be use64, and we will have our proposal, which is type of createProposal, and that's why we created a second struct. And we are going to return an option, and inside this option we are going to have our proposal. After we insert our proposal to our map, then the data that is going to return to us is the one that was there before we inserted it, and if there was none, then we are going to have the null. And since we don't work with null in Rust, that's why we have this option. First, inside this function, let's create our proposal. I'm going to say let's value, and it's going to be type proposal, and let's create our proposal. So the description is going to be proposal.description. If you remember, in this createProposal we have the description, so we are going to take the description and is active from this proposal. Then we will have approve, which is going to be 0. We will have our reject, which is also going to be 0, like the pass here. Next, we will have our is active, and as we talked about, we are going to get it from the proposal parameter. And we have voted, and we are going to initialize it with an empty vector. And finally, we will have the owner, and again, we are not typing owner. We are getting the owner from the address from the principal that called this function. To have it, we are going to say ICCDK, and we are going to use the caller function. And this ICCDK caller function is going to provide us the principal that called this function. Alright, now we have our value that we are going to insert to our stable BTreeMap. Now it's time to insert it. I'm going to say proposal.map.width, and again we will have our p here, and we are going to say p.borrow mute this time because we want to alter the data, and we are going to say insert, and we are going to have the key value pair, and they will come from these parameters, this key and this value. So once we say a key value, then we are going to be fine, because this is going to be our key and this is going to be our value that we created up here. All right. Now we also created our first update function, and in our next video we are going to continue with our functions for the smart contract. Thank you very much for listening to me on this video, and I will see you on the next one.